Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Arsh, Ellahi, and I'm online today with a friend and business partner today, Neil McCoy Ward. Just so that I know that I've got you all online tonight, can you, if you don't mind, in the far right hand side of your screen, you should have a grey box. Would you mind just saying that you can hear me and that's all fine? Okay, so a few people saying that they can hear us. If the rest of you can just let me know, that's fantastic. Okay, so they're coming in thick and fast now. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. Everyone's online. Right, we're going to get straight into today. I was just speaking to Neil just before we got on the webinar, and I've said that tonight there is no holds barred, which means that you are going to get some fantastic value tonight, some fantastic information. So Neil, just so that I know that you're online, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you, Arsh.
Okay, fantastic. So we're going to go brief. We're going to keep the introductions brief because I'm assuming you know a little bit about me, if you've seen or heard about me. So my name's Arsh Ellahi. I run a group of 12 companies with my brother Aki Ellahi, and together we're landlords and letting agents. I've put a new line in there for today. As we speak today, I am at Amazon bestseller. So I recently wrote a book, recently launched a book called Boom, Bust and Back Again. And this week, after consistent 5 months of selling, we became a bestseller in 4 different categories, which includes property. So I'm super proud of that. Super proud of that. So again, we're landlords and letting agents. We've been letting property since 1973. Technically speaking, isn't correct because I wasn't born until 1980, but it's all started with my father's small portfolio. Now we've got well in excess of 500 tenants. 500 tenants was the very baseline, which was I think a couple of years ago. And now I think we're now closer to the 700 tenant mark. Predominantly, I think about 90% of them are all on benefits, which means that the other 10% are professionals. We've got a very high 100% rent collection record and a very high 98% occupancy rate. So I'd like to think I know a little bit about what I'm doing. But more importantly, I got challenged, I think it was in 2013, by a very good friend of mine, Jim Halliburton. And we were just sat around having coffee one day, and he goes, "Oh, should we have a bit of a challenge?" And he asked me if we could challenge each other to see how many rent-to-rent properties we could bring in a year. Now, Jim's very good at negotiation, so to be fair, I was a little bit worried about this challenge. And within a year, we bought in each well in excess of 20 properties. Now, we're going to be teaching you tonight how you can do this too. Make no mistakes about it. You're going to have all my key secrets. And more importantly, I'm going to be showing you how you can do it, but more importantly, how Neil has done it as well. So I'm very privileged to be asked to be a guest writer in Your Property Network magazine every month, and this was one that I wrote in November 2014, so nearly a year ago, about rent to rent and is it worth the hype. And in this magazine, in this article, should I say, I actually wrote about 3 properties that I took on rent to rents, showing you how much they're achieving, how much I'm paying the landlord, what the utility costs are, how much profit I'm making from the property, but more importantly, how much I was making over those 3 properties and how much I would generate over 7 years. Now, of the 3 properties that I showcase, I think I was going to make in excess of or just short of £500,000 worth of revenue. So that's just something to think about. That's going to be over a 7-year span, but that's just over 3 properties. Remember, within the first year, I took on the best part of 20. So what about all the others? How much is that going to generate? Just something for you to think about there. So that's enough about me. I'm going to pass you over to Neil, who's hopefully going to keep it to a very basic and brief introduction because I really want to get into content tonight. I really want to start playing with your mind. So over to you, Neil.
Okay, thank you, Arsh. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can everyone hear Neil okay? If you can just put yes or no, that'd be fantastic.
Great. Okay, fantastic. Great. Well, yeah, I've been a landlord now for over 10 years, but mainly my focus is on rent to rent. So I've actually stopped buying properties myself now because, and the reason for that is, and you'll find out as we go through the webinar, that I make probably 4 to 5 times more through rent to rent on a house than I would by owning it as a single let in most cases, and it costs a far lot less with without all the hassles. So that's why my strategy really now is rent to rent with a little bit of deal sourcing on the side. And the reason for that, most people wonder why the deal sourcing as well. And this will happen to you when you're negotiating for deals occasionally. Something will come up where the landlord or the homeowner will say, this isn't right for me for a rent to rent, but do you know anyone that might want to buy the property? And that's why, because you can actually package that up and sell it. So keeping it really brief, Arsh, that's I won't go too much into detail. I also own the Forward Thinking Group. That's a group of a lot of different property companies, sales, sourcing, rent to rent, lettings, home improvement, a few other things. But that's keeping it really brief and specific to this. So I'll let you move forward.
Okay, so first thing that we're going to be talking about is where first thing that we do on every webinar, should I say, is that we kind of ask people, what's the reason why you want to do this? Now, I'm just looking through the group of attendees that are online today. I only recognise, I would say, a handful out of a lot of people that are online. So if you wouldn't mind, can you just put in the far right-hand side, what's the reason why you want to get into rent to rent? Why do you want to do this? What is it that's wanting you to get into property? If you just put something like, I don't know, let's the average, the normal answers we get is that they want to escape the rat race. They want financial freedom. They want money to spend on holidays. They want to do this. They want to do that. I want to know what is it that turns you on about property. So people are saying lifestyle, cash flow, low cost entry, get away from my 9 to 5, freedom to own a Lamborghini and a Ferrari, health and time, more cash flow, give up day job, financial freedom, create a legacy, build cash flow, build a future, have passive income, less money to get started, financial freedom, money working for me, freedom, raise funds to buy property. Okay. Financial freedom, create wealth. Okay, brilliant. Right, so a lot of it there is money orientated. And I'm going to pass it over to Neil for a sec to go through the pictures. But one thing that I took away from that is everyone wants to get away from something, or they want to create something new. Now, rent to rent can do that for you because the truth be told, with my rent to rent portfolio, I don't spend any of the money generated from that business. And you can ask my business partners, we simply set it up so that was due, that money there is to pay down our debt on our current portfolio. So I've got a large portfolio, well in excess of 100 properties, and the aim for me is to retire the day that I turn 45 years old. Yeah, that's correct. You've heard it correct. That all my loans will become zero on the day that I become 45. That's my goal. And I've set up all my bank lending, everything, so that the night that I go to sleep before my 45th birthday, when I wake up on my 45th birthday, everything is zero. That's me done, retired, finished. Now my rent to rent portfolio will generate income for the next 7 years, so that all that cash flow I will keep paying down the debt. I could use that money to keep buying property, but I think I've got enough. I am still buying, but I'm only choosing the deals that I want to do, and I'm doing more and more developments. Okay, so Neil, talk to us about this slide. What does happiness through education teach us?
Okay, that's great. Many of the people who have come on our training or when we're talking at property events and meetings or wherever we meet people throughout when we're doing property, these are the 6 most important things that have come up time and time again. A lot of people talk about money and saying they want to earn as much money as possible. But really, we always go to the root and we look at what is it that people actually want. When people say they want money or they want this or that, what is it they truly want? And these were the 6 things that we found people actually want at the root of it. So top left, first one is nice holidays. So having the freedom to actually go off, travel, enjoy yourself, have a nice holiday. Health, this is the other important one. Many people getting into rent to rent and property either have problems with health. So it could be anything. It could be medical, it could be stress, it could be putting on too much weight through work because of the stress and the unsocial hours and unhealthy eating habits. And then travel. A lot of people want to travel a lot more. Next, more time. I don't know if you feel that way sitting at home, but do you feel like all the time you're just against the clock? You're looking at the clock at work, or you're finding yourself commuting over 45 minutes each way every day to work. That time's just lost. You can't ever get it back again. And of course, the most important things is relationships and families. So these are the 2 biggest ones that come up whenever people say why they want to get into this strategy. Relationships, so it could be personal relationships, it could be sort of marriage or girlfriend, boyfriend. And of course, then it comes on to the most important, families. A lot of people always say to Arsh and I'm doing this for my children. I'm doing this because I'm not seeing my children very often. I wanna spend more time with them. My family's the most important thing to me. So these are the most important things, and rent to rent really does give you all of these things. It gives you so much more time, and time really is the most important commodity we have. Because once you have more time, you can then focus on these other things. You can travel more. You can look after your health better. You can build better relationships. You can spend more time with your family. As an example, when I first got into rent to rent, the time spent on it was very heavy. But the longer I stuck with it, the less time it took. Whereas now, it might just take me an hour a week on my entire portfolio. That's all, 1 hour per week. And that's usually just checking the bank accounts and checking payments and just checking that the contracts have been done correctly and things like that. It's just such an amazing strategy. So you can achieve this just such an amazing state of happiness through having a rent-to-rent portfolio. It's just fantastic.
Okay, thanks for that, Neil. Right, let's start off on the very basic. Now, just so that I know, level of experience that we've got people online tonight, can you just put one liner? Are you new to property? Are you new to rent to rent? Are you new to what do you know about rent to rent? So, because I want to tailor tonight's webinar specifically for you. So, okay, beginner, new to rent, new to rent, buy to let, landlord, new to rent, fantastic. New to rent, understand the basics. Okay, so people pretty much are new to rent, right. I'm glad we've got that because we are going to start from the very basic. Only what we've seen on the webinars, buy to let, understand. Okay, so we've got one little professional on there. Don't know where. Okay, right. Okay, so with rent to rent, there's 3 parties involved. There's the landlord. Now there'll be you who's sitting in the centre, and then there'll be a third group, which will be the tenants who will be moving into the property. So 3 parties involved, and you're going to be the ringleader. The tenants will not know who the person who owns the property is because you'll be the person in the centre that will be making it all happen. I'm going to be going through it straight away. Okay, so what's involved with rent to rent? In simple terms, you rent the property from the landlord. You may have to do some light refurbishment to the property, and then you rent out the property room by room, which hopefully you'll be doing for a lot more than what you're paying the landlord, which will give you a profit per calendar month. Now, I'm going to give you an example as to why I really like rent to rent. Now, with a lot of people on this webinar have said that's they've got some form of single lets, or they're already a buy-to-let landlord. Now, if you've got a single let property, let's just take this as an example that you've got a 4-bed single let property and it's been rented out for £850 a month. Now, when it's let, everything is going fine. Tenants are fine, you're getting your rent paid, everything's working very well. Now, what happens when the tenant leaves? Do you still have an income from that property? Probably not, because if there's no one living in there, who's going to pay the rent? But more importantly, if you're not getting an income from it, who's going to be paying the mortgage? Because you can't go to the mortgage company and say, sorry, let's just use an example. So, sorry, Birmingham Mid-Shires, unfortunately my property is vacant. Do you mind if I have this month off? They're going to say, unfortunately, Mr. Smith, sorry, but how about you either pay your rent, pay your mortgage, or we're going to repossess your property. So regardless of whether that property is occupied or not, you still have to pay the mortgage on it, which means that you then will probably have to pay for the buildings insurance, as well as the council tax whilst it's void, and any other bills, as well as maintenance, etc., that you may have to do to the property. Now, that can all stack up. And in a scenario, most buy-to-lets will be cash flowing circa around £200 a month. Now, every year that's going to be generating you £2,400. But if the property is vacant for more than a month, you've potentially just about covered your cost for that year. So it's all about managing your costs, managing your expectations. Now, for this example, this property would have had 4 bedrooms on the first floor, so bedrooms 1, 2, and 3 and 4. On the ground floor, it will have a living room, a dining room, a K for the kitchen, and B for the bathroom. So far, is everyone with me? If you think I'm going too fast, please say we'll stop and we'll go through it again. I want to make sure that we're all on the same page here. Yeah, okay, so everyone's saying, yeah, fine, okay. Now, with rent to rent, or when we say rent to rent, predominantly creating a rent to rent property is creating a HMO. And a HMO is an abbreviation for House of Multiple Occupancy. So when you're creating a house of multiple occupancy, what you're generally tending to do is renting out each of the rooms, each of the lettable or bedrooms, to a different individual or a group of individuals. So now, previously we had bedrooms 1, 2, and 3 and 4 on the first floor. Now these are being rented out for £400 a room per calendar month each. Now, on the ground floor, we have the living room and the dining room. Now, if you're letting it out to individuals, you don't need 2 living rooms. You could utilise one of the rooms. So we've just utilised the dining room as another room to be let, which means that it gives us 5 lettable rooms, plus a communal living room, communal kitchen, and a communal bathroom. Is everyone still with me? Again, just type yes or no, just so that I know that we've got everyone. Okay, brilliant. So everyone's still saying, yeah, I like to think that we're still all on the same page. Now, here's the maths on this. Now, you've got 5 rooms generating £400 a month, which will give you now a grand total of £2,000 a month, which is far greater than the £850 a month that you were generating previously as a single let. But more importantly, if one tenant vacates and you've got 1 room vacant, guess what? You've still got 4 other rooms generating you an income. Now, does that sound nice? The fact that you will never have a vacant property. Now, out of that £2,000 a month, you've now got to give the rent to the landlord. And let's just say, for argument's sake, £850 a month. As well as that, the standard procedure or the normality is that within that rent that you're charging to the tenants at £400 a month will be inclusive of all the bills. So it may include council tax, it may include, it should include council tax, water rates, electricity and gas. And let's, for argument's sake, the standard or the average for a tenant all-inclusive is around £350 per month for the whole property. So our cost on that property is now £1,200 a month, but our income is £2,000 a month, giving us a profit of £800 a month. Okay, I've got a few questions, but if you can bear with me, I will answer them when we get to the next stage, because I want to make sure that you're in the same train of thought. So after we've taken out our costs, our income is £2,000 a month, our costs are £1,200 a month, which means that leaves us a profit of £800 a month. Now, £800 a month over a year is £9,600. And the one thing that you've got to take into consideration is that if you had a single let, it'd be highly unlikely that you would get a single let that would cash flow £800 a month, unless you've got no mortgage on the property. So that's the very basic of what a rent-to-rent is. See, it's not rocket science. We haven't recreated the wheel. All we're doing is we're working with a system that exists. Now, the person that owns the property may already have a buy-to-let on it. So who's going to be happy in this scenario? The landlord's going to be happy because he's now got someone as a tenant, i.e. you, who's going to be renting the property off them for the next, let's say, 3, 5 or 7 years. Now, I know Neil likes to do 3-year agreements. I like 7 years on the other hand. The reason why I like 7 years is because I like the fact knowing that I've got the certainty that I've got that property for 7 years if I have to do the work to it. Now, working on the basis that that property that we've just spoken about is producing £800 a month, times that by 12 gives us £9,600 for the year. Now, over 7 years, that property should generate £67,200 on a property that you do not own, but basically you're just managing on behalf of the owner for the property that he owns for the next 7 years. The landlord loves it. He's now got a tenant for the next 7 years. Come rain, sleet or shine, you should have signed an agreement with them to say that you're guaranteeing the rent for that period of time. Now, that might have scared some of you. And the reason why I say that is because that's quite a big commitment, £67,000 worth of rent that you've got to pay this landlord. However, the key to rent is negotiation. And the reason why I say that is, and the reason why people love rent-to-rent is that with rent-to-rent, there is no mortgage. You do not have to buy the property off the landlord. Therefore, you do not require a solicitor, which means that unless the landlord wants to get the agreement checked over by a solicitor, there is no solicitor required. Therefore, as you're not buying the property and you don't require a mortgage, you don't have to stump up a £25,000 deposit. Now, let's just say average house purchase price is £100,000. If you had to go off and buy it, that means that you would need a 25% deposit. You'd need to pay a valuation fee. You'd also need to pay solicitors' fees. So 25% deposit on a £100,000 purchase is £25,000. Now, actually, sorry, going to stop you right there. Can everyone still hear me okay? One person just put that their sound. Okay, right. Sorry, one person just said that they thought that I'd cut out. No, I am still with you. So £100,000 purchase, £25,000 deposit, plus £1,000 for solicitors, plus £500 towards a valuation report. Now, plus if you decided to have a home track report, that's another £1,000. So potentially you may need the best part of £27,500 just to purchase one property that may only cash flow you £200 a month. Now, how many years is it going to take you just to get that initial deposit back? Working on the basis that £2,400 is your cash flow for the year. Very simple math says it's going to take you over 10 years just to generate your money back just for that one. Now, with rent-to-rent, it all comes down to the negotiation. You may not have to pay the landlord a deposit. You may ask the landlord to help with the refurbishment of the property because you're taking it on for such a long period of time. You may ask the landlord to furnish the property. You may not. But we're going to be talking about this. But reason why people love rent to rent is because there's very little capital upfront required. It's a lot easier to generate cash flow, but more importantly, it instantly creates you a business. You can walk up to that landlord today, you can shake his hand today, you can take his keys off him today, and your agreement will start tomorrow. Now, when you're buying a property, you've got to go to the estate agent, you've got to view it, you've got to put an offer in, hopefully it accepts. You've then got to wait 28 to 56 days to go through a legal process. Then you may have to do some work, and it becomes long-winded. It's very slow. With rent to rent, the reason why I like it, it's aggressive, it's fast, it's fast-moving, and that's why I love it. I can walk up to a landlord today. Yeah, hi, my name's Arsh, Ellahi. I'd like to rent your property off you for the next 7 years. I'm going to guarantee you your rent. I'm going to do some work to increase the value of your property. How does that sound? I'm going to give you the rent that you require today. Regardless, come rain, sleet or shine, I'm going to pay you your rent. Now, if I came up to you and you were the landlord that I just approached, how does that sound? If you wouldn't mind, just in the text box, would you have offered me your property or not? Okay, brilliant. So far, it sounds good. Someone's put, sounds pretty damn good. That's not the end of it. We're going to keep going. So now, one thing is that we've talked about the costs it requires to purchase a property. One thing we haven't talked about is the return on investment. Now, return on investment is the capital that you actually put into a property. Remember, the capital that you put into purchase a property was 27.5 grand. Now, with a rent to rent, it's very low capital intensive. So, the initial investment might be £2,000 towards a light refurbishment, and that is if you start to furnish the property. Now, the cash flow per month is going to be about £600 after deducting all your costs. So, after taking out the cost for the landlord, after the utility costs, which means that it's going to give you an annual profit of £7,200 for the year. Now, the maths is that if you divide the 7,000 between the 2,000 which you put in, it's going to give you a rate of 3.6 or an actual annual return on investment 360%. Where else can you get a return of 360%? Just something to think about. Remember, capital outlay is only £2,000. Where else can you buy or get control of a property for £2,000? Now, over a 3-year contract, it's going to give you a return. Remember, the annual return is 360%. Now, over 3 years, that's going to give you a return of just over 1,000%. And you control the asset. Now, compare this to the cost where you require a deposit of 25,000. I'm being very skeptical when I say 25,000 because in Wolverhampton, for £100,000, you can buy, let's say, a 3-bed terrace. Now, if you're in London, obviously £100,000 is going to be a drop in the ocean. Let's try £300,000, which means that your deposit would be 75,000. How long would it take for you to recoup that kind of money? So this is things for you to think about. And one quote that I came up online with and I thought resonated really well with this webinar is, the secret to success is to own nothing but to control everything. The key to rent is to control, not to own the property, to own nothing, and to control the property for the next 3, 5 or 7 years. And that's a quote from Nelson Rockefeller. He's one of the most successful people in the business. Now, if you look at business in general where we are today, you don't have to own anything to make money from it. Let's take Facebook. Facebook is one of the biggest businesses in the whole universe, yet it does not own any content. Now, let's bring it a little bit more local to London. Uber Taxis doesn't own a single taxi, but is one of the largest companies. Now think about it. Airbnb, sprung out of nowhere, doesn't own a B&B or a hotel, but yet still a fantastic service. Now, I'm going to pass you back over to Neil for this part, because here's an example of how one person can create massive value. In actual fact, no, we're not. We're not going to pass you over to Neil. I've just looked online, and we've got a person online, and I hope this really works. We've got we've got a couple called Mena and JC. Now, they came on our course in February this year. Now, I'm not going to say too much. This is purely coincidental, but I'm going to put these guys on the spot, and they're going to tell you exactly how many properties they've taken on since February this year. So I really hope this works. So, hi Mena, are you with me? Mena, JC.
I can't remember now because you know what? I just left the status behind and I just didn't want to carry on.
JC, Mena, are you still with me?
I don't know much with what you're saying. So you tell me.
Okay, I can hear them talking in the background, but unfortunately they're not with us. So I'm going to pass you over to Neil. Neil, are you with me?
Yeah, got you. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yeah. Can everyone hear Neil okay?
Yeah, that was funny. I felt like I was watching a soap opera there with that convo going on in the background.
Indeed.
Yeah, I mean, JC and Mena actually have done really well after our training. They've just unbelievable results actually. So I think they're going to be coming to talk on the next event actually, sharing how they've done it, sharing their journey. So looking forward to that because I've not seen them in a while now. Yeah, I mean, just as an example from my life, just in my first year alone, it was approximately £11,000 per month cash flow.
I'll tell you what, Neil.
Yeah.
I think they're online. Let me see if I can get these guys on board because JC and Men are absolutely inspirational.
Okay, great.
To the point where I think I'm going to let a cat out the bag. I think they've got 12 properties that they've taken on, and more importantly, people say that this doesn't work in London. Now let's unmute these guys. Mena, JC, are you with me?
Yes, how you doing there?
Hey, how are we doing?
Very well, very well. A bit tired. I've just literally just come off the plane at the moment, so
Where you been?
Sorry?
Where you been?
I've been in the States. I was in ATL.
Okay, fantastic. Now stop showing off. Tell me, what have you done since February?
Well, with you guys' guidance, a lot. We've done 12 deals now. We're on our 13th. I'm actually just came back and just liaison with Mana. What's the next step and how we're moving forward? And yeah, things are looking bright and very progressive.
Talk to me about numbers. How are we looking?
Okay, so it's quite surprising. On our first properties, we were cash flowing from about 650 to 700. But when we're finding that our strategy is now to get the bigger properties on, so more your 7 beds. So we're profiting about from 1,500 to 2 grand on our bigger properties. So yeah, I think that we've progressed. When you choose, it's all about choosing the right property. So what we're actually doing, what Neil's doing as well, is sourcing on the ones that we don't particularly want because we're just after the bigger units now.
Okay, fantastic. Now, one thing that JC did, and he approached me about this, he managed to get a developer on board who had 30 apartments, and between me and JC, we managed to source them on. But JC is you're based in Croydon, JC?
Yeah, Croydon, South London, all around South London.
Where are all your properties?
Based in South London. We've got one in Cricklewood, just outside, out of the skirts, but most of them in South London.
Fantastic. Now, people say to me that this cannot happen in London. How's it been? How have the landlords been when you've approached them with your proposition?
Very receptive. A lot of them are. It's about solving problems. If you're solving their problems, because sometimes they might have an issue where they've used letting agents in the past and not happy in that area. Some of them, we have a couple of landlords that don't actually live in the UK. So it's all about solving their problem, making sure that they're comfortable and they 100% have trust in you. I think that's the main thing, making sure that you're literally holding their hand through the whole process, making them understand, and that you're completely transparent. And I feel, without a shadow of doubt, majority of them just take the service because it makes sense to.
Okay, so JC, I know this is going to be a bit of a personal question. How's your cash flow looking a month?
Okay, well, our cash flow, slightly a personal question, but that's no problem. We're looking about 12, 13 grand a month.
Wow. And you've been doing this since February?
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Wow. To be fair, guys, you guys have smashed it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And there are lots of people like JC and Mena who've gone off and done exceptionally well. What you've got to have the drive and ambition, but more importantly, you've got to have the vision. If you can believe it or not, me and you can be driving down the same road, and I will spot more opportunities than you because I'm on the search for it. I'm on the hunt for it. Would you say that's correct, JC?
Definitely. I mean, what we try to do, we're kind of workaholics because we work about 7 days a week, and between me and Mano, we usually put in a good couple 12 hours a day. So it is about, being ludicrously focused on what you're trying to achieve. And definitely the opportunity is always going to be there. It's about you looking through with a fine tooth comb and seeing the opportunities and seeing where someone else has overlooked it, and you can go in and wrap up the deal.
JC, well, I've just had a great question come through. Was JC a landlord before or a letting agent? What was your experience?
Well, I do own properties, to tell the honest truth. That is only, I would say, by luck. And now, obviously, due to the education I've got with you guys, it's more streamlined it. So I would have definitely not been able to be efficient in this particular, because there's properties are different and there's different strategies. So this specific strategy, we were new, we were fresh, wet around the ears, and we didn't know anything. So from grassroots, it's feasible, it's possible, via the knowledge, yeah, definitely.
Fantastic. To be fair, guys, as I said to you, and I'm still in contact with JC pretty much most weeks as we catch up. And I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago, and you were off to, was it Bangkok or was it Thailand or?
Yeah, Thailand. Yeah.
Okay, and he said that I was just sat next to someone on the aeroplane, and actually, JC, you tell the story.
Okay, all right. So we took a little bit of a trip. It wasn't business focused at the start of it. And we were just speaking to a lot of landlords just for different reasons really. And we came across a landlord that was in an area in Bangkok called Anot. And very, very good area. A lot of tourists go there, so it'll be more or less I would say your Covent Garden kind of area if you're equating to London, and it's very, very, very good. So we ended up speaking to him, and he's saying he's having some problems renting out the property, and we're just trying to work our understanding, because obviously the system is completely different out there. Now, the thing about their system is that they have their properties under full management via the actual blocks. So, for example, you have a one bed or two bedroom apartment, and it's managed by the whole building. Now, it's like you pay a service charge and you take care of maintenance. They even do laundry for you. So it's a complete service. But what he was having trouble was finding people, Londoners or people from any other place, because he didn't really speak good English. So we solved this problem because we can speak good English. And we was able to speak to a lot of different people in regards to renting out his property, took some really great pictures, and now we've actually got that as one of our rent-to-rents over there.
Wow! So you went over for pleasure, came back doing business, and that's because your eyes had been opened out to what to look for. Is that right?
Indeed, definitely.
Everywhere is an opportunity, right? JC, thank you very much. I'm going to unmute you because I'm conscious of the fact that we are running behind on time. We're only literally like a third of the way, but we're actually 2/3 of the way time wise. So thanks, but stay online because I might want to come back to you. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Arsh.
Thanks, Mena.
Thank you.
Mena is like JC's the face of it. Mena's the numbers part of it. Is that correct, Mena? Anything
Yes,
you
that's
need to know about a spreadsheet, Mena knows.
yes.
Thanks.
Well, you're welcome. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Right, guys, what a stroke of luck that was. What a stroke of luck that was. I just noticed that those guys were online. I'm going to keep them online, hopefully, so that I can answer some questions. We are going to push it forward because I want to get through to how can you get these results too? Quite simply, first of all, JC and Mena. JC called me before he came on the course in February, and he says, "Well, am I definitely going to be able to go out and do this?" And the fact is that I teach you exactly what I know, and the way that I deliver the course is exactly how you're hearing it tonight. It's very down to earth. You are going to know exactly what you need to know to get you out on the road. So educate yourself on how to do the strategy effectively with someone who's already gone and done it. You research and you've got to find your goldmine area. Now, the one thing that you've got to bear in mind, remember that the whole point of tonight's webinar is talking about how to find landlords. First thing that you need to figure out is, what is your goldmine area? Now, people told me it wouldn't work in London. I've just given you proof that it does. JC was your living proof there and then that it works in London. People said, well, landlords won't give me their property in London. Well, 12 people have given JC their properties in London. Now, if JC looks after their properties to a good standard, if those landlords have got friends, who are they going to recommend if JC's paid them on time every time? Got to start thinking about this. The world works in mysterious ways. Now, what can you do? You've got to broaden your horizon. You've got to really stretch your thinking, because if you can do this correctly, you can make a lot of money. You can be like JC, that's earning 12 to 15 grand a month. 15 grand a month is £180,000 a year. That's a lot of money. Now, as JC said, he's just come back from the USA. Prior to that, he's just been to Bangkok. He's living the dream. You could be too. And third and final, you've got to find the landlords and make the deals. But I'm going to be showing you about this. So straight into the content, because as far as I was concerned, we just scratched the surface there. So landlords, we've got to, to be fair, there's lots of people talking about how to reach rent-to-rent deals. And a lot of people talk about going to letting agents and estate agents. And that is a good strategy. But when you're dealing directly with the letting agent, you're going to come across some friction. And that's the best way of putting it, friction with the letting agent, because as soon as you take their property off them, if you're letting it off the landlord for 7 years through a letting agent, is there still a need for a letting agent in the centre? Because if you're paying the landlord on time for the next 7 years, the letting agents just pretty much taught themselves out of a job. So I'm going to be talking to you. So we talk about advertising, direct mail, and trade services. Now, this is a good one. This is one of Neil's key secrets. But I've listed now, this is just some of the places. I reckon we've got the best part of 30 places that we actively search for how to get rent-to-rent deals. Now, one person that I've just saw that we've got online is actually one of my mentees, a chap called Martin Webb. I'm not going to bring him online because I know he's a little bit shy like that, but he will teach you that he could very easily talk to you about some of the ways that we've spoken about what's the best way of getting this. And when Martin came to me, he had very little property knowledge, and we're slowly but surely expanding that on the basis that we're getting him to look in new avenues as to how we can get him up on the rent-to-rent property ladder. So high street office. Now, I've got a high street location, so you can't avoid me. Now, my high street office is called We Buy Properties Fast. Now, what do? It's very simple. We buy properties fast. But then on top of that, if we can't buy it, I've got something called an ABC plan. Can I buy it? Can I sell it? Can I rent it? A, can I buy it? B, if I can't buy it, can I sell it for you? C, can I rent it? So every time someone walks into my office, I'm going to be able to offer them something for it. Now, the second thing is the most, I'd say, common way of trying to find deals is by leaflets, but it's a numbers game. Don't expect to put 10 leaflets out and get 10 responses. It's never going to happen. You've got to put out 100,000 leaflets to get 10 responses. That all takes time. And, you know, I appreciate that everyone wants to become a millionaire overnight. Leaflets is possibly a way that you've got to keep constantly going at it with a view of getting back out. And the one thing that I would say with leaflets is that with marketing, there's no right or wrong way with marketing. You've got to put yourself in as many avenues as possible so that regardless, people are going to see you, people are going to remember you. Now, the way that I'm going to counteract that is that most of you would have come on this webinar, or all of you would have come on a webinar because you would have seen a Facebook post, you would have seen me on LinkedIn, you would have seen me on Twitter, you would have seen me on Facebook, you would have seen it on a direct email. Is that correct? If you can just still say yes or no, that'd be great. Just check in with me. And the reason why you would have done that is because you would have seen me. So it would have either been an email, you would have seen an email and Facebook, or I'd like to think that I'm pretty much unmissable when it comes to social media. You either see me on Facebook. If you turned on your TV in March this year, you would have seen me on TV. You see me on Facebook every day. You see me on LinkedIn every day. You see, if you open up the YPM magazine once a month, you see me there. Touch wood, I've just been shortlisted for Entrepreneur of the Year through the local business commerce. So that's quite an exciting time. I've just launched my book. I've just got Amazon bestseller. I'm out there every day, and more importantly, I'm shouting about what I do. And it's only so someone put heard of you on a Tigrant course. I've never been to a Tigrant course, but people are talking about me. Someone said I saw you on the telly. Okay, so there's a meridian of ways of marketing, but the fact is that you don't become a one-trick pony. You don't just think, yes, I'm going to put out some leaflets, I'm going to sit and wait for the phone. You've got to do your Facebook marketing, you've got to put your leaflets out there, you've got to be looking for property, you've got to be knocking on the estate agent stores, you've got to be going through the letting agents, seeing if they're receptive to the idea. You've got to be looking for the deceased estates. You've got to be on Facebook. You've got to be on LinkedIn. You've got to be speaking to property sources, properties that haven't sold. What can you do with it? Now, this is a new one for me, car boot sales. For those that have been on my social media, I've been going to car boot sales for the last few weeks. I've been going for years with my father, but it only became more apparent the last few weeks. I went to one today, and I was talking to one of the traders. And when people think about car boot sales, naturally they just think about people selling crap out the back of their car. That's the general conception. But would you say that in actual fact, a lot of the people there are actually traders? Now, I've been over the last year, I've saved 66% of my material costs on my refurb projects due to car boot sales. More importantly, if you go to the right car boot sale today, I asked the guy when we're going in, how many people turn up here weekly? They said 10,000 people. That's 10,000 people in Wolverhampton. Now, in that 10,000 people, are they going to own their homes? You would like to bloody think so. So have I now got 10,000 people to pitch my business to? Can I buy it? Can I sell it? Can I rent it? Of course I can. And today, just by walking around for an hour, I came out with a lead. People go to network exactly, Mittel. So, more importantly, property portals. People at places like Spare Room, Easy Room Mate, Gumtree, Rightmove, Zoopla. Newspapers. Loads of people advertise their properties in the back of newspapers. Supermarkets. People put their little cards up in the supermarket that got a property to let. Notice boards. What I'm trying to get across to you guys is, where do you not advertise? Every time you should be opening your mouth, something should be coming out. One thing I didn't put in there, networking events. These are just to name a few. I've got a number of other places that I advertise, or I'm constantly marketing that to find landlords. Is it starting to hit home now, guys? That's what I really want to know. So I'm just checking. Okay, brilliant. And this is why 80% of the people fail on rent to rent. Because The missing piece of the puzzle when it comes to rent success are these three things. Only always go direct to the vendor. Remember, the person that can say yes or no is the vendor. The letting agent can't do that for you. And that's why when you're in front of the landlord, you get one shot. That one shot will be the make it or break it scenario of whether you get that deal or not. Hence why the negotiation training is essential. You can have all the deals in the world, but if you don't know how to seal the deal, it's never going to work. More importantly, now Neil put this slide up and he goes, focus your marketing on just 4 strategies. I'm going to counteract that because I focus my marketing on everything that I do. The moment that I wake up in the morning, first thing that I'm doing, I'm focusing on where I can target. You need to put yourself everywhere and anywhere. Now, as the guy that wrote, I never can pronounce his name, so I'm going to put, the guy that wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad, which I'm assuming most of you would have read. If you want to be a successful entrepreneur, there are 2 things you must first master: sales and marketing, because you need both of those for rent to rent. You need the marketing to pull the landlords in. You need the sales to be able to rent the rooms, because when you're renting property, it is very much a sales-led process. And the reason why we ask, are you a strong negotiator? Because if you're not a strong negotiator, you're not going to bring the property. More important, if you're not bringing the property, that means that you've just spent a lot of money on marketing for very little, for no return. So the negotiation part is key. That's why on our rent-to-rent course, we specifically spend a whole day showing you the exact formula as to what we do for our rent-to-rent success. More importantly, you should be able to leave the rent-to-rent weekend. We spend the Saturday covering how to find landlords, how to find your goldmine area, how to figure out the numbers if it works. Now, I've come across so many people, and today's webinar is more so a bit of a rant than a webinar, because I've come across so many people that said, Arsh, I've got a deal. I said, okay, cool. I said, you found a deal, let's break down the numbers. And when they're breaking down the numbers, it's not actually working. You know, if you're running around for £100 a month, it's not working. More importantly, if you're running around for £100 a month and you've got 1 room vacant, you're actually losing money. You shouldn't be losing money on a rent-to-rent deal. That's why the success of our students have been that they know their numbers. They know how to negotiate and they know their numbers. So here's a few things that I appreciate. That one thing that I am going to be completely open and honest about is that, yes, we do run a workshop. The next one is on the 31st of October and the 1st of November. And the key things that we cover on the days, on the Saturday, it is very much all about rent to rent, how to find the property, what kind of property you're looking for, what kind of work you need to do to the property. Unfortunately, I can't cover everything that you need to know in an hour, but give me a weekend with you and I'll turn you into a rent-to-rent machine, and that's guaranteed. And I'm willing to put on the line that the proof is in the pudding, because I've just introduced you to a person that I didn't even know he was going to be online. JC and Mena are the proof and the prime example that this works everywhere. And I've got hundreds of people that I can show you that we've trained throughout the year that have done exactly that. So the things that we're going to be teaching on today: how to identify and dominate your goldmine area, how to get you in front of a large amount of landlords, how to create a high-end finish for a low-cost budget, because remember, everything to do with it is cost. When you take that property on, if you then go and spend 10 grand on a refurb, you're not going to make money. But if you can do it within £500 to £600, guess what? You're way back. You're on a track to success. How to be legally compliant and avoid the pitfalls that others have been caught out with. Now, if people say that you're subletting, you're not subletting. Subletting is illegal. Now, one thing to just take into consideration, not many people talk about, it's a grey area, is mortgage lenders. Now, I've recently just successfully negotiated one of the landlords that I'm dealing with up in Liverpool on a lease option deal. He went to his lenders, which was Mortgage Express, and I was adamant that they would say no and they wouldn't be very receptive to it. But I actually spoke to the underwriter on the for the lender on behalf of the owner, and we've got them to successfully say, and we've got it in writing now to say that they're happy with the deal and the deal's going ahead. But that only came down to the negotiation. I made it sound like it was their idea, but in reality it was my idea. And that's the key to negotiation. It's like when you're married, you never want to tell your wife they're wrong. So what you do is you plant the right idea in their mind and let them take the success for it. Now, if you've got ladies online, sorry, I appreciate that. I appreciate that might get some backfire, but that's how men work. So how to calculate the numbers, the profit on each deal, but more importantly, how Neil managed to get 11k of cash flow per month in 1 year. Now, we'll also, on the second day, we'll be looking at negotiations training. Now, negotiations all comes down to psychology. Remember, you want to be able to put the idea into landlord's mind that this is a good idea for them. We'll be looking at the buying patterns and sales psychology, because psychology becomes a part of it. How you act in front of a landlord is going to determine the decision that they make at the end of the presentation that you present to them. The exact process for taking a prospective landlord from the first letter to the phone call to an actual deal. How to overcome objectives. Now, landlords aren't just going to say to you, yeah, okay, here you go, guys, here's the property. They're going to come back to you with questions. What if this? What if that? What happens if? What can I do if? But more importantly, the key to any negotiation said, I appreciate your question. Thank you for asking it. But boom, here's your answer. And providing that you're strong and you're confident enough with everything that you come back with, guess what? You're going to come back with the property. And more importantly, you'll learn the success of Neil's relationship selling. Now, in actual fact, okay, so here's one of the last courses. Now, if anyone saw me on Britain's Benefit Tenants earlier this year, in March, in February this year, they were still filming me. So you've got the guys there still filming from Channel 4. And here's one of the courses that we ran. So this one had 75 people in the room and 50 people streaming. And on the second day, you can see that we moved the room. So it's a much larger room where we had double screen. And again, you can see me here. And I even bring my 2-year-old daughter to this because I want her to be the sharpest cookie. I want her to be the sharpest cookie in property. And you can guarantee by the time that she's 18, she's going to be one sharp lady. So now this is the last Rent to Rent course for 2015, without a doubt. And we're changing the whole format for 2016. So we don't run these courses regular. We run them approximately 3 times a year. So if you think that you want to make a change, remember we talked about all the things that you want to do. You want to create cash flow, you want to make things better for your family, you want to travel, whatever your why was at the start. I'm going to question now how serious you were about that. The reason why I ask that is because now's your opportunity. I've offered you an opportunity now. Now, at the moment, me and JC are talking about potentially going into business together, and that's on the back of him coming on one of these courses. He took the initiative. And he took the initiative to come on the course and look at the rewards it's reaped for him. He's producing 15 grand a month. Now, we don't go for hard sell in respect of it's not an expensive course. But more importantly, we're going to be teaching you on the negotiations how to convert a conversion rate from 1 in 5 to, in actual fact, 4 in 5, go from 20% up to 80%. We'll do 3 live negotiation sessions, which means that by the end of it, you should have covered any part of, if a landlord comes back to you with a question, you should have an answer for him. And finally, here's some of the guys. Remember we talked about testimonials. Here's some of the guys, and you might recognize some of these guys. We've got Sally. We've got Susie Bates, who's very well known on some of the forums. Got Justin Taylor. And these are the guys. And here's some of the testimonials. Now, in the far right-hand corner, we've got Rory O'Mara, who's a very well-known mortgage bridging broker. And these are some of the guys that have been on the course. So we've taught a lot of people. Now, the guy on the left-hand side, bottom left-hand side, he came on one of our courses recently, and he's actually doing very well. Swap, Swap is his name, and he's just signed up. I think he came on our last course. He's just signed up his first rent deal. So the people, we've got JC, top left-hand corner. We've got Deborah, far right-hand corner. Deborah, as soon as she left the course, she went off and signed 32 properties with one landlord. So it can happen. Now, one thing to talk about is systemization. You don't want to run around like a busy fool. You want to take on these properties, but you still want a life. You don't want to be working 9 till 9, 8 till 8. That's long hours. To start with, you may do some hard work. Eventually, you want to systemize it, and that's crucial. So what we're going to be talking to you about is the mind maps, how to systemize it so that you can pass all the paperwork onto one of your colleagues or your staff that you may be taking on in the future, and saying, well, actually, in actual fact, we've just taken on this property. This is what we've got to do. Do it. This is where you buy the beds from. This is where you buy the sofa from. This is the kind of paint we use. This is where we buy it from. This is how much it costs. And it's all systemized. You shouldn't have to be doing it yourself after you've got yourself up and running. Now, anyone can go off and do this. And technically speaking, I've given you a lot of content there tonight. And you could potentially go off and try this yourself. But prepare that you may come back and ask for some further advice. But I only really help people who've come on our training. So if you scratch my back, I'm definitely going to scratch yours. Now, I'm going to be offering you something called the Key to Success, which has got all my rent-to-rent documents, my mind maps, the guarantor documents, tenancy agreements, spreadsheets, sales schedules, and so much more to guys that are intending on coming on. Now, let's cut straight to the chase because, guys, we're very limited on numbers. It is on the 31st and 31st of October and the 1st of November, so it is a weekend. It is going to be held in Dudley. And over the weekend, you're going to get a day of rent-to-rent training, a day of sales training. You're going to get the management agreement that our solicitor drew up, which costs well in excess of £3,000. You're going to get all the legal documents. You're going to get the Key to Success. You're going to get your meals on the day. You're going to get a membership to the Facebook group, which is specifically for people who come on the course. People on this webinar, unless you've been on the course, unfortunately, you can't join the group, which means that your education is ongoing. We don't just say at the end of day 2, thank you very much for coming on the course, now go off and do it. You get added into a group where we've got hundreds of people on there who are actually doing this day on day. So if you've come across a new objective that we've never heard of before, hopefully you'll come on at the end of the day and say, Arsh, Neil, I come across a landlord, this is what they say, how would you tackle it? And we would be there for you, there to answer it for you. We log in every day to make sure that there's questions and we interact with all people of the group. You also get a one-on-one call with Neil after the course, as well as lifetime support. The dates are the 31st of October and the 1st of November. It is being held in Dudley. We did try running it in London before, but we got the same amount of take-up as we did in Dudley, plus our costs. Remember, I'm very cost conscious. When we did it in London, all we did is we tripled our costs and we still had the same amount of people. And more importantly, on the Saturday night, we actually get to let our hair down. We all have a meal, hopefully together. It's quite cool and it's quite close. So something for you to take into consideration. Now, there's some of the rooms and the swimming pool from the hotel. Now, I'm not going to talk to you about any of the courses, but I don't want to talk to you about any of the courses. We're going to do a webinar special tonight. Now, next year, just so that you know, the price of this course is going up to £1,200. But tonight, because it's the last one of the year, I appreciate we've got 2 weeks' notice to give you. You can attend both days just for £595 for the whole package. So £595, divide that by 2 days, is £297.50 if my maths are correct. So for less than £300 a day, you can have the content that we're going to be giving you that's going to set you up for life. More importantly, here's the special offer. We're going to extend it so that you can bring a partner for free, a guest for free. So that's $595 for 2 people. And it's the last course of the year, because next year it's going to go up to well £1,200, because we get a lot of people on it and people saying it's too cheap. Now, remember, we talk about return on investment. Return on investment is $595 for which is equivalent to 1 month's cash flow. Now, guys, what's your thoughts? Because I've tried to give you as much information as I can about what rent to rent is, how you can really make it work in your area, how JC went on and did it in his area, how he's now producing 15 grand a month, how Neil's producing, he produced 11 grand in the first year. So technically speaking, JC has done far greater than Neil, but all comes down to determination and taking action and the ability to spot an opportunity. Because without those, you won't be able to grow a business. Now, just letting you know that the dates are 31st of October and the 1st of November. And if you book tonight, you can have both days for $595, and you can bring a partner for free. And the way that you book is simply by going on my website, my personal website, arshellahi.com, and then go on /events, and you'll see where it says Neil Ward Weekend Special. And just so that you can see it, here's one that I made earlier. So if you're on my website, go into the events, Neil Ward Rent to Rent Special. You'll see that it says $595. You can add to cart. And if you are bringing a business partner for free, you press the button underneath. And if you want more confidence that people have come on and what they say about the course, why not watch some of the testimonials? If you type in Arsh Ellahi into YouTube, you're going to get hundreds. You're going to find on my website as well as all the testimonials. So this is your opportunity, guys. I can only take you so far. More importantly, I'm not one of these guys that you cannot ever get in contact with. If you want to have a chat about whether you think this is right for you, whether it will work for you, why not give me a call? You've got my personal mobile number there. Let's have a chat. Let's see what we can do. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter and Facebook. You can also find me on places like Instagram. And we're just in the process of setting up a podcast as well. So I'm trying to be everywhere. I want to be everywhere because that's how marketing works. That's how business works. If people are referring to you, if they're talking about you, you're doing the right thing. And that's where you want to be. Get yourself in front of landlords. Yeah, okay, I met. They're going to say, yeah, I met Prash, I met Mittel, I met Zahir. And these are guys that I all want to do business with. But I can only do business with you if you know exactly what to do and how to do it. Now, I appreciate we've run 6 minutes over. Well, we're actually run 8 minutes over, but I'll tell you what, you've got a couple of minutes. Ask me any question you want. So let's have a quick look. Okay, let me just go through some of these questions. Okay, so first question is, how long is the price for, as I may want to invite a friend tomorrow? And first question I've got to ask you is that $595 is the price that you would have paid just for you anyway. So what you can do is you can pay for it, and if your friend comes along anyway, it's a bonus. That's the way that you've got to look at it. I've come across so many people that say, yeah, okay, I'm only going to come on it if a friend's coming on it, but you're on this property journey alone. property can be a lonely journey, so it's probably best that you make the most of the opportunity. I am going to close the 2-for-1 offer tomorrow at lunchtime. So, people that contact me after that, unfortunately, it's no longer going to be available. Okay, so it looks like great value. What's the maximum number of the course? Now, that's a good question, actually, Prash, because we're hoping to have the best part of 70 people in the room, but you're going to get our undivided attention for 2 whole days. Means that at lunchtimes you can have chats with us, break times you can have chats with us, evening on the Saturday night you can have chats. But more importantly, if you can't make it in person, the one thing that I did forget to suggest is that we actually live stream the whole event as well. And the reason why I say that now, I'm just going to quickly show you one thing. So if you can't make it in actual person and you can't make it to Dudley, you can have all the documents. Let's just quickly go to live stream. And you can live stream the whole event from the comfort of your own home, as you've done tonight, but you actually get to see me in person and present to the room. You get to see the room, you get to ask questions like you were tonight, and I'll answer them for you there and then. And more importantly, you get all the documentation, which I send via email the week before. So there's going to be approximately 70 people, and we normally have approximately 50 people live streaming on the day. So if you can't make it in person, there's no real option, there's no real reason why you can't say that you can't live stream and get all the information. Now, Raj has asked a good question. What kind of contracts are made between us and the landlord? What kind of tenancy is made between the tenants and us? Now, the way that you've got to ask yourself is, you're going to be acting pretty much like a glorified letting agent in the fact that you're going to be managing the property on behalf of the letting agent. On behalf of the landlord, but you're going to be guaranteeing the rent. So you're going to be offering a management contract, which we'll offer you as part of the deal. What you offer between you and the tenant, I would always advise offer an AST. Now, there will be some people tell you to offer a license agreement, which I don't agree with, because they haven't been proven in a court of law that they are actually legal. And we talked about pitfalls earlier. Don't fall into the pitfalls. I've been letting property for well in excess of 20 years. I've seen it, I've heard it, and I've done it all. Don't put yourself in a position where you can be called upon at any one point. The only way that I've managed to survive in all these years is to be whiter than white. I wouldn't have gone on TV if I wasn't whiter than white, because people could have picked flaws with my business, and that's not somewhere where you want to be. Now, right. Here's a good question, but I'm gonna have to counteract the question with a question. Now, someone's just put, what's the best technique to get landlords? Now, hopefully, if you're listening to a webinar, there is no one best technique. It's a combination of techniques that bring in the landlords. Now, for argument's sake, if I put a leaflet through a landlord's door, some people will naturally do research on you. Now, if you type in Arsh and Ellahi into Google, you're going to come across thousands of hits through YouTube, etc., etc. Now, if a landlord starts reading up on me, is that already going to build credibility? But more importantly, if I type in one of the people that are on this webinar, automatically, first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to come across your Facebook. So one thing that I teach you is about how to improve your social media presence. Because when people see you, they want to see that you're this strong person, you're this strong profile. You are going to be able to fulfill the requirement for the next 7 years. So don't just think that you're going to have one technique and that's the best way for it. Yeah, so Heath has asked, I'm assuming that the 595 is just for the course only, not for the hotel. Yeah, unfortunately, the 595 is just for the course. If you go on booking.com, I think you can get the rooms relatively cheap between, for the one night, I think it's between £50 and £70 a night. So it's not really that expensive. Richard has asked, is there a manual or other information? You get a host of information to take away with you. So we generally send it, because there is that much, we generally send it via email. So you're going to get that before the course, so you can get to read of it. And the one thing that I ask you to do is read through it all, print it off at home, read through it all. You're going to get a pack in the room anyway. but come prepared with questions. Don't come unprepared. Because when you go to meet at Landlord, you want to be prepared. I want you to be prepared in the room. I want you to throw me your toughest questions. I want to show you how I overcome them. And that's the only way you're going to learn. Should I get an agent with HMO experience to manage a rent-to-rent? Now, good question, Dave, but one thing to take into consideration, cost, cost, cost. Remember, when you're starting out, your profit is only as good as what you're bringing in. So for argument's sake, if the agent doesn't understand HMOs, and for every day that property is vacant, it's costing you money. And one thing that we teach is about how the best way to advertise your property. So how to find the property, where to find the property, what to say to the landlord, where to advertise it, what to do to the property. They're the 5 key things. So we're going to be teaching best places how you can advertise the property yourself, which will help you to determine the goldmine area, but more importantly, how to let your rooms yourself. Okay, Maria's put, whilst you're renting the property, are you responsible for all the repairs to the property? This all comes down to the negotiation that you have with the landlord. Every property that you go to will have a completely separate negotiation. Now, I've got properties where I'm responsible for the boiler. I've got other properties where the landlord is responsible for the boiler. I've been to properties where I've managed to negotiate a 3-month rent-free period. I've gone to other properties where I've had to pay whilst I'm doing the refurb. So there's loads of different ways, there's lots of different ways. It's what works best for you. That's what I'm trying to get across. And that's the beauty of the negotiation. What's the biggest challenge in rent to rent? Biggest challenge is rent to rent is how receptive you are to the idea and how you take the information in, which will relay into how you relay that information onto the landlord, which will also result in how many properties you bring back in. Now, example, JC, when he came in February, he went on the challenge of learning something new, something that he never knew about before. What he didn't realize is that in February, we were to change his life forever. He took that information in, he relayed it, he put it in a context which works for him, and he's put that in a format now, which every time he goes to the landlord, he's bringing back the property. So that's the biggest challenge, is how you deal with it. Okay, so Heath has asked, how much is a live screen DVD? It's not a DVD, so to speak, Heath. It is, you are going to be watching from the comfort of your own home. So it's not a DVD. It will be recorded, but you'll get the audio clip for it after, not the visual clip. So it's the audio as if we're talking now, and you get all the information as we're speaking now. And it's the same cost as if you're in the room. The reason being is that the manuals and all the documents that we give you have cost us a lot of money to produce. So we need to recoup that cost. So it is the same cost. I appreciate that you're not in there person, but you are getting exactly the same content. Okay. So I'm just quickly going through the last few questions. Okay, so someone's put, do we check and reference our tenants, and how do we do about going about that? Morris, I hope I've pronounced that right, is that yes, I would always suggest that you check your tenants and obviously do some form of reference checking, but we'll be talking about that, and that all comes down to systemization. When you take a tenant on, who they are, where they've been, where they come from, what you're doing to check, what are their background checks, all the things are the things that you need to do, because the last thing you want is a tenant that won't pay, because remember, you're reliant on that rent to pay the landlord. Someone's put, is it advisable to set up as a letting agent to do this? Believe it or not, I wouldn't say it can be done. It all depends on what your circumstances are. Everyone's different. So people who may want to do this may still be in a full-time job to start with, which means that they won't be able to set up a letting agency. So there's lots of ways to think about it. Okay, so Riaz has asked, is a solicitor required to make a contract between the landlord and agent, landlord and myself? Whereas by coming on the course, you won't need a solicitor because I'm giving you all the documents that me and Neil use on a day-to-day basis. So no. How much does the solicitor charge? There is no solicitor. You're getting my contract, so I wouldn't be worried about that. Okay, so Amit's asked a good question. How do people in full-time jobs manage starting out in rent-to-rent? Now, it's going to be, to start with, Amit, it's going to be tough because you're going to need to allocate some time to make sure that you can do this. So if you're working 8 till 8, you've got to make sure that when you get home from 8 till 10, you've done enough and you've got enough marketing out there so that when you get leads, you're able to follow the leads up. More importantly, when you've got properties on, you need to make sure you can put other things in place. You don't, just because you're in a full-time job doesn't mean that this it's not undoable. You can get all-day PA services who can take your calls for you. It's a cost for that service, but you don't have to take the calls. The PA will take the calls and they'll forward them on. If it's urgent, they can actually act for you. Okay. Just quickly go through the questions. Okay. So slowly getting through. I think I've answered pretty much all the questions. There are a few other questions, but I appreciate that it is quite late. What I'd like to try and do, if possible, spend a bit of time with my wife before the weekend's over because Monday's another day. If there are any other questions, please, by all means, you've got my contact details there. Either give me a call, preferably tomorrow, and then let's see what we can do. But more importantly, have you decided what you're going to do? Have you decided whether you're going to change your life for the next year? What's 2016 going to hold in store for you? I can't answer that question for you. Your action tonight can answer that question. So before we shoot off, I'm just going to, I appreciate that. I've pretty much muted Neil for the whole presentation. Neil, are you still with me?
Yeah, hi Arsh, I'm still here.
Sorry, mate, I completely overrun on that.
That's okay.
Okay, so Neil, is there any last few words that you want to say?
No, I think you've mainly covered it, Arsh, really. I was going to go into my slides a little bit on finding landlords, but you know, with the 20 or so sources that you mentioned, I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head there. So yeah, the rest of it we'll cover on the course anyway, especially on the Saturday, which is all the, you know, getting into the meat of rent to rent. The Sunday, which is my domain, which is the sales training. So between us, we'll pretty much cover everything on the weekend.
Okay, brilliant. Well, guys, on that note, I want to say thank you very much for being with us online tonight. Hope you've had a great evening. I hope you've enjoyed the webinar. But more importantly, I hope to see you, hopefully at the end of October. I'd like to thank you all. Wish you all a very good night, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Take care. Good night. Bye-bye.